when the first request for the supersession of the board came in, the stock was 55. Now it's 32 rupees and has hit several down circuits on the way down. Now that new government nominees have been added to the board of Maytas, let's see where the story moves from here. To discuss that, J.R. Verma, former SEBI member, joins in with him. O.P. Vaish, who has been inducted into the board. He's one of the nominees of the government on the Maytas board. Karthik Ganpati of Nishit Desai from a legal perspective. Gentlemen, morning. Thanks for joining in. Mr. Vaish, let me start with you. What would you seek to do now as a board member for Maytas, given that the promoters are already represented and continue to be on the board, even as you join in as a government nominee?
Well, frankly, I can only say at this point of time that I'll act as an independent director as I do on many other boards. It doesn't make any difference that I happen to be a government nominee. Of course, the difference that it makes is that I can feel hopefully more secure working on that board. I wish, I have a suggestion for the media that this interview should be with an independent director when he exits a board rather than when he is just entering a board. I have yet to know about the company. I have yet to know what the status is, what am I expected to. I'll do my best. But you should, as media, look for exit interviews of independent directors rather than when they are just entering the board.
That also we will do, sir, with you when you're done with your stint at Maytas. We promise you. But we just wanted a sense of what you seek to achieve right now. What is the goal? I mean, are you going in now to take a complete audit kind of look at Maytas' books and see if some money was siphoned off from Satyam and put into Maytas and can therefore be brought back? I mean, if you could list off the top 2 or 3 priorities you have as you enter the board, that would be useful for us.
You see, I'm speaking for myself because I don't have any brief from the government yet. I can only say that having seen the status of Maytas from the website of the company, it has large projects on hand, and I would wish that those projects which are intended to do justice to the community, to the country, go forward. And all that needs to be done to ensure that those projects fructify should be the major effort of the board. The other things come in the form of corporate governance issues, which too are important and which will be looked at anyway.
Mr. Vaish, good morning, sir. Any idea when the first meeting will happen of this newly constituted board? And as a board member, how keen are you that there is representation of financial investors like ILNFS and IFCI, even if to just better understand the situation there is at Maytas Infra right now?
The institutions are certainly keen because they have stake. They have stake both as some of the institutions perhaps as investors in the shareholding, some others who must have advanced loans. And the institutions would certainly want and wish that their interests are taken care. And that would naturally happen. That must happen. Any management has to do that, whether it is the present management or the additional directors who have now been appointed or will further be appointed. I mean, that's what is expected of any board. Since we have, unfortunately become more anxious about corporate governance issues, those issues take into account all aspects, whether it is interests of the stakeholders, interests of the business, the economy, the project, all that would happen.
Sure. Professor Verma, let me engage you now in the discussion. In your eyes, is there a fairly material difference between a completely superseded board and a board which continues to have the Maytas promoters along with 4 independent directors? The functioning and the capabilities and the freedom of each, in your eyes, if you could lay out?
No, I think there is a very major difference, and I am very happy that the Company Law Board has distinguished the Satyam case from the Maytas case. Satyam was an extraordinary case where the entire board needed to be reconstituted. Maytas is completely different. I think the Company Law Board has very clearly sent a signal that extraordinary powers are meant to be used only in extraordinary situations. Because otherwise, the government, if you give the government extraordinary powers, the first time they will use it right, the second time they will use it when it is an overkill, and the third time it's going to be an outright abuse of the power. So I think it is very, very good that the Company Law Board has clearly distinguished these situations. One, you had a vacuum in Satyam. In Maytas, it's a very different story. I think we also need to remember that today the Satyam shareholders and the Maytas shareholders are in an adversarial position, because Satyam is going to try to recover money from Maytas, and the Maytas shareholders are obviously going to resist that. And the government having control over both would have created an intolerable conflict of interest between the two. And I think, therefore, the Company Law Board is absolutely right in having distinguished this completely. One could even argue that even this was not needed, that the government had powers to investigate, to conduct an audit and so on, and that might have been sufficient. But anyway, I think that's beside the point. I think distinguishing the two cases was absolutely critical, and I am delighted that that has happened.
Karthik, morning. Is there a fine line, though, between what has been decided and supersession? I mean, there's 4 members, one of whom will be chairman. They can't meet without 2 of the government nominees not being present at the meeting. There are quorum details that have been set out. Is this very much different from supersession of a board?
Well, supersession of the board would essentially mean that the entire board is reconstituted, right? What you're doing over here is there are 4 people who will be independent, who will come in, look at the company, look at what's gone on, and hopefully bring a balance to what this is. And I agree with the comment that it is good that there is a distinction between Satyam and Maytas. To the extent that you have the 4 nominees, your attempt is, I guess the CLB itself is sort of sending the signal saying that, at this moment there has been nothing that the CLB has seen which says that it is directly a case of mismanagement or there is something that has happened. It's merely investigatory, it's merely exploratory. And the 4 people that are being appointed will probably be, sort of the custodians, the shepherds of the company, as it were, to make sure that, things don't go south, if in fact there is a way for things to go south. So I think the distinction here is really between replacing an entire set of people because there is a perceived vacuum, or you're just saying that board didn't work, as opposed to putting 4 people on who will assist the company in coming out of the position that it's in now.
Mr. Vaish, as someone who's stepping into the board, sir, what kind of information would you like to be put forth to you to better understand the situation? Earlier this morning we were talking about how there's a lack of information on Satyam, but what would you like to hear in order to understand better what's going on at Maytas Infra?
You see, in this case, between the time that I was asked to be on the board and now, I have looked through the website of the company, which gives details of all the projects that some of them are ongoing, others one is not sure whether they have taken off and at what point are they. I think it is important as a running business to ensure that the business runs smoothly in the interest of the company and in the interest of the community. I'm fascinated by the kind of projects that the company has on hand, internally, internationally, and therefore one would say the existing board has also had a lot on their hand, and the board as expanded would have to carry forward the same. At this point of time, it is difficult to say what else would be needed to ensure that the company runs as it should.